is that I need to be able to somehow formulate, like, like for public education. So it's like a citizen to citizen way of being able to inform people about racism. Because ultimately that's, I think, in my experience, what has been the problem is that people are really unaware. Like, I mean, they do think that racists are not the average person. Whereas racism can exist. Like, we all have these racist tendencies, right? We can't help it. When you grow up and globally, globally, there's all of these messages. And like, what is your experience? Like, how would you define racism, or what does racism mean to you?
Oh gosh, that's just it's a loaded question.
I know, it's
honestly.
really complicated and really difficult.
Start answering that, as in how people make you feel, feeling of being unaccepted, not wanting to be yourself, not wanting to be noticed. Just the fact that you're noticed wherever you go, you stick out, and there's comments made, assumptions made. I don't know, it's huge. It's, like you said, it's not as simple as just hearing the word nigger or any racial slur. It's all the small little things that bring up these feelings of either inferiority or different and alone or isolated. Those things, I think, all kind of equal racism.
Yeah.
That'd be my guess.
Okay, so how have you experienced racism, or how have you witnessed racism?
Oh gosh, in so many different ways, from like when we were younger, simple of not being allowed on the playground equipment because we were black, or chocolate milk was better than white milk. It's that.
Oh geez, yeah.
Yeah, that old thing. Or just from my hair, comments on touching it, feeling it, commenting on it, which always to this day drives me nuts. Sensitive about that. I suppose also too the kind of thing for my brothers and the stereotypes of them being, the kind of the typical American black things, which is so funny because culturally that's what they expect of you, but you're not growing up in an American culture to have that new culture. Yeah. Oh gosh. At work. Wondering if you're capable. You're not as good as
Are these like
others.
Internalized feelings of racism?
Yeah, and they'll come through in comments teachers or people make. It's always the little things that, whether it's intentional or unintentional, I think a lot of the times people say things and they don't even realize how racist they're being.
True. Yeah. And I think, for the most part, I truly believe that people are not, you're absolutely right. They don't intend to be racist, but it's like unconscious racism that comes out.
Yeah. Oh, lucky you! You're lighter than your brothers, or you're still, you're pretty for a black girl. Like, those kind of things, I'm sure they're not, in their mind somehow that's not a racist thing. They're complimenting me.
Yeah.
But
well-meaning racism.
Yeah.
If you had the responsibility of ending racism in Saskatoon, or if you were to be the bridge, like I am the bridge to ending racism in Saskatoon, what would you say has been your best way of being able to overcome racism?
Honestly, I think, and I'm just experiencing this even with friends I grew up with, especially since I became Muslim, there's a lot of, things, ignorance. And for people to sit down and actually talk and to hear these comments and to realize there's this huge, now I'm talking more from a point of a Muslim at this time period that we are in now, huge ignorance gap, and there's that kind of them and us. And for them just to sit down and see how close we are. I know this was last weekend, one of my friends, her face, her jaw actually opened when I told her that Muslims do believe in Jesus. And she was like, what? When did that? And so it's this ignorance that, it's these heathens that hate us and they're different than us, and yet nobody wants to sit and actually talk to them or even open. And it's amazing because they choose the ignorance. On my Facebook page, I'll put things, especially because I know I have friends in Canada, so I want to post things about different world issues that they don't even bother to read. And when I tell them this, they're like, oh, but they won't even bother to read it in the first place because they're just, okay, it is the way it is. It's them over there doing these kinds of things. So I think that's it. It's just really, we want to keep us to us, and as long as you're not too different, we're okay, which is amazing. And I think that's, what amazes me is, although you have people that say, oh, I'm okay with, especially the liberals, right? You'll find liberals that aren't so liberal. I believe everyone should have the right to do as they want, until I became Muslim. It's like you can be anything you want within the realm of atheist to Christian, or a Jewish person. But as soon as it became a Muslim issue, then suddenly you shouldn't have those rights. You shouldn't have the right to practice whatever religion you want. You don't have the right to dress the way you want. Whereas before they would, especially if it came to transgender, well, they should be allowed to dress the way they want. But Muslims no. And it's just, I think it's to do with the media or whatever. Now there's just this total thing.
There's a terrible anti-Muslim sentiment actually about
even
the world.
people who are very liberal don't consider themselves racist at all. And yet it's like, yes, we believe in freedom and people should be allowed to believe as they want, if it's in our version of normal beliefs.
That's it exactly, right?
And beyond that, it's like, no. I don't know.
So being the bridge, I am the bridge, what would you say, do you think?
Tell people, I don't know.
I know a
Getting
good
people to
one
talk,
actually.
yeah?
Would you agree that, I mean, I've learned a lot from you, but you're very patient and non-judgmental and willing to share, your beliefs with people.
I think, like you said, that's going to be the thing for ignorance when I'm saying stop being ignorant, talk, get to know people, and not a superficial thing. Share stories, ask questions, don't be afraid to ask, don't make these assumptions. And I think even like you're saying too, when people hear about the compliment that's racist, I don't think even white people know the privilege they come from. It's just like we were saying.
Yeah, no,
they
they
don't
don't.
even realize how easy things are for them and how everything becomes easier. They're naturally. This was actually in teaching. I had a parent who was so upset because I was not their version of Canadian. And so they said, no, what are you?
Because you were a black Muslim?
Yes.
And they wanted a white...
They wanted a white Canadian. And I think this was before I even wore hijab, so they couldn't quite tell. But they assumed it. And they're like, oh, anyone can get a passport. Where are you really from? And the amount of disrespect they spoke to me compared to the English teacher who was the blonde, white Canadian. And I also have one of my closest friends. She's American. She's African American. And she has the same thing, and she goes, and for her it's even more frustrating because they won't even assume she's African American. All of them think she's from Sudan. And, it's just kind of this assumption that, who are you?
They can speak to them any way they want.
Yes, and then
respect.
there's no way that you have the same education. And even though my elementary school and my high school and my university was in Canada, the white Canadian teacher was still going to be more confident than me. And even if, just because I simply wasn't born white and born in Canada.